One of the scariest things about marketing and growing is, how do you know that you're doing the right thing? How do you know that the efforts you're putting out is actually the most important and the most effective way of doing what you're trying to do? So it's something that a lot of companies struggle with, and a lot of companies don't make it happen. In fact, what happens is they don't have the right data that tells them what the right method would be. They don't have the right attribution to understand what they should be doing to make the most capability of their marketing. Well, fortunately, Eric Dodds came in and he's with Rudderstack. He helped us understand data and attribution and how the marketing team can better understand the data that they're getting so that they can make sure that sales is on point, the tech team is on point, that marketing knows what they're doing, and everybody is aligned. He goes through some great strategies and some very important things to note. Absolutely listen to this one.
Welcome to Scale Your SaaS, the podcast that gives you proven techniques and formulas for boosting your revenue and achieving your dream exit. Brought to you by a guy who's done just that multiple times. Here's your host, Matt Wolach.
Yes, welcome to Scale Your SaaS. Really glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. By the way, if you are looking to grow your company, if you want to make sure you have all the right processes in place, if you want to make sure that the structure is there and that you have everything you need for your foundation to grow, definitely subscribe to this show. Hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified of all the new episodes where we bring you amazing, impactful people from around the world of SaaS. And one of those amazing people is here with us today. I've got Eric Dodds with me. Eric, how you doing?
I am doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me. Love talking about growing SaaS businesses. So really excited to be here.
Me too. I'm excited as well. Let me make sure everybody knows who you are, Eric. So Eric, he is the head of product marketing at Rudderstack. He leads product marketing there, which is Rudderstack. That's the warehouse native CDP. He also leads management of their internal data stack, including the data pipelines and infrastructure that drive marketing, reporting, and activation. He has over a decade of experience working with and implementing customer data infrastructure and has advised companies like BMW, WeWork, and a host of startups on marketing strategy and data-related projects. He's also the co-host of the Data Stack Show. Definitely go check out his show. Basically, he's interviewed nearly 200 data professionals in the last 3 years, including guests from Netflix, Stripe, Facebook, and many of Silicon Valley's hottest data startups. He absolutely knows his stuff, and I'm really, really glad he's here. Eric, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me what's been going on with you lately, and what do you have coming up?
Yeah. So let's see. So I'm in product marketing. I actually have run multiple marketing functions. So initially built out the demand generation function and performance marketing here at Rudderstack, and recently have been working on building out the product marketing function, which is a really fun discipline in SaaS. There are a lot of different definitions of product marketing, but building out that team and a couple big things. So working on tightening up positioning and messaging to sort of clarify our position in the market and our differentiators. And then also taking to market our latest product, which is an identity resolution and customer 360 product that runs inside of the data warehouse natively. So very, very busy here on our end at Rudderstack.
I can imagine. A couple things to unpack there. You mentioned product marketing. I mean, I think a lot of people have heard that, but quite a lot of people don't quite understand what is that? How does that? Is that different than regular marketing? Is that different than product people? So can you explain for us exactly what that entails? We'll be right back. Game changer in lead generation, Lead Feeder. One thing that's super frustrating when I work with clients is driving traffic to their website, but then not knowing who those visitors are. You can't tell who these companies are, but guess what? There is a tool and it's changing the game and supercharging your lead gen. It's called Lead Feeder. Now imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all with your CRM. Lead Feeder is not just a tool. This thing is your secret weapon for efficient and targeted lead engagement. Now, what sets Lead Feeder apart? It's the ability to provide detailed insights into visitor behavior, helping your sales team prioritize efforts and close deals faster. This thing's got customizable notifications, lead scoring, GDPR compliance. It's loaded. Lead Feeder is really changing the game. If you're ready to revolutionize your approach to leads and deals, head over to leadfeeder.com for your free demo today. That's LEADFEEDER.com. Don't miss out on the future of successful lead generation with Lead Feeder. And we're back.
I'll explain. You'll get, a bunch of different definitions if you ask different product marketers. So I'll explain how we view that world at Rudderstack. So, when you're building a software product, you're taking that product to market, right? You have software that performs a function for some sort of end user or set of end users in a business. And you are marketing that. You're trying to get leads who are interested in that. And then you're trying to, enable your salespeople to close a deal where someone buys your software, right? And there's a huge spectrum. There's a self-serve type motion with product-led growth and a bunch of different business models. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to get someone to either sign a contract or swipe a credit card to buy our software. And when you think about marketing, traditionally, a lot of people think about demand generation or even brand marketing, and which are really, really critical. Product marketing is a different function that's much more of an enablement function. So whereas you think about, sort of brand marketing or performance marketing have metrics that they want to hit, right? Impression share, or, it's leads or cost per acquisition or pipeline generation, those are all really sort of metrics oriented. And product marketing is a really interesting function because a lot of times there's not a number to hit. You're an enablement function. And so the question that we ask is, how do we understand on a really, really deep level how our software solves a problem for the end user? And then how do we help our performance marketing team get better leads? How do we help our sales team, create higher velocity in the sales process? How do we help our content team create content that's really educational and really compelling so that leads and prospects and website visitors are very educated moving towards a purchase decision? So we really sort of span the spectrum, and so we think about product marketing at Rudderstack as having internal customers. So we are connected at the hip with a product management team, understanding the roadmap, what we're building. We're responsible for taking what we're building and fashioning that into product launches and then enabling each function.
I love that. So you're kind of like the hub, if there was a hub and smoke model to make sure everything happens.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Great. When does a team or a company need to have a product marketer or a product marketing team? At what point in their growth cycle should that happen?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say that in many ways, I don't think you can start too early with having a product marketer in place. The caveat there is that product marketing in the very early stages of a company changes a lot, right? And I would say this is in sort of the product market fit phase. And so if you want to, use the conventional 0 to $1 million, $1 million to $10 million, things are all over the board, 0 to $1 million, right? You're just trying to fight to stay alive. You're trying a bunch of different stuff. The way you describe your company, the way you sell, everything is changing, month over month or even week to week sometimes as you learn. Things sort of stabilize and you get a somewhat repeatable process. And then, if you believe the conventional wisdom that, you hit the 10 million threshold and you have some level of product market fit, at that point, you're talking much more about scaling. And so I would think about, in my opinion, and this isn't, I actually didn't come from a product marketing background. And so in many ways, I wish that in many prior companies and everything that I had started this way earlier, but I would think about it as sort of accomplishing two different things. I would hire it very early, but in the 0 to 1 and 1 to 10 phase, you're collecting as much intelligence as you can from the customer and the market, and especially your own marketing and sales process, and trying to build a bunch of intelligence that will inform how you communicate and differentiate yourself, and sort of build those foundations. And then once you sort of get product market fit and you can filter all of that intel down to the stuff that's going to create velocity in the sales cycle, then it's about building a repeatable process of taking what the product team is building, launching it, and then enabling teams to, drive interest and ultimately close deals.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that breakdown. That's super, super helpful. But it feels like you've really got to be in touch with the product team, with the sales team, with everybody, and making sure that everybody knows fully what's coming and what's going on. I think that that's something within a lot of companies where that breaks down. And I've seen a lot of times where the sales team's like, we have this now? I didn't even know that. And a lot of customers don't even know it. It's scary when that happens. So it sounds like you're keeping everybody in touch together.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of the job. If you talk with any product marketer, if you're savvy, you can figure out what people are building. You can figure out how to translate that into a message that people understand. But the incentives of different internal customers that product marketing has around the organization are drastically different. So, for example, a sales team is, generally concerned with closing net new logos, right? There's a commission component to that. And so the way that it's designed for them to interpret the product roadmap is for them to say, okay, how can I construct a deal that includes the things that are most relevant for these people that will, that they're willing to pay for, right? Whereas the customer success team might be incentivized more on like a net dollar retention number or an expansion number, right? And so as opposed to the way that they might think about, architecting a package of product features that might drive expansion, maybe much more around adoption, right? Or deeper usage of existing features or other things like that. And so I think that's what makes it tricky is that, things get out of alignment in many ways because there's intentional tension in the way that different parts of the company are incentivized. And so I think as a product marketer, really understanding business fundamentals and incentives is really key to understanding how to be that translation function.
I agree. And I hate it when different departments, different teams are incentivized differently and they're kind of pulling at each other. And you're right, it creates that natural tension. I think a big lesson for me as a leader and for other leaders out there is let's get our teams aligned with the goal that they're aiming for on the whole. For those of you who have read the book Traction, that's one of the big things from that book as well is let's pick one or two overarching goals and let's get every team focused on how they can reach that goal. And I think that really helps what you're talking about. Another thing that you mentioned earlier, identity resolution. Can you explain exactly what that is and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a problem that we noticed really early on with a lot of our customers. So we came to market with a product that provided data pipelines for you to collect data from various sources. And so if you think about, the modern SaaS business, you have a marketing website, there are people interacting with that. Some proportion of those people probably convert on a form or request a demo or sign up for a trial or whatever. They then go in, they then a lot of times will cross platforms, especially if there's any sort of PLG motion where they're getting into an app. And so you actually have multiple different data sources, and trying to connect the user journey across all those data sources tends to be extremely difficult. The way that this causes problems in a business really practically is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, the marketing team is spending time in Google Analytics and sort of looking at all the top of funnel stuff, making sure their UTM parameters are all tagged correctly so they can tie, their Google Ads spend to, some sort of lead number. The product team is probably using a different tool to look at product usage, right? So they may be more interested in looking at, screen recording, or sort of user tracking screen recording to see how people are using it. Maybe they have a product analytics tool like, Amplitude or Mixpanel. But those two data sets are really siloed. And then of course you have the 800-pound gorilla, which is, Salesforce or some sort of CRM tool where the actual process of selling is being driven. And that tends to be sort of the end all be all for the business because it's the closest to the bottom line in terms of revenue. But what's challenging is that practically you have three, even in that scenario, and that's actually pretty simple. As you grow, the problem gets even worse. Then you throw in customer success and, other teams. But just the scenario, you have marketing and Google Analytics, product using some set of their tools, and then, the sales team or revenue team using Salesforce. You have three different repositories of data that aren't necessarily wrong, but that only tell a small part of the story. And so this is pervasive. Everyone listening probably knows about these challenges, have dealt with them. Typically, what companies try to do, and especially in the world of B2B, is you just try to get this data into a single place. And because Salesforce tends to be the center of gravity in terms of revenue reporting, you're trying to get data into Salesforce a lot of times, right? And so, you set up the campaign objects and you try to get the UTMs in, and you're doing all this weird, automation, and, probably all at a Zapier plugged in from the marketing ops team and all that crazy stuff, right? And so what is the net result of this? I used to joke all the time that I've never seen a Salesforce instance that wasn't a Frankenstein. Has anyone?
It's true.
Why is that? Well, it's because you're trying to force a bunch of marketing and product data into a CRM that's really built to drive a sales process, right? Mm-hmm. And so you go down this path of custom fields, and it gets really, really messy. And then the quarter end comes around, and you have someone spending 4 days in spreadsheets doing a bunch of VLOOKUPs from exports, trying to, give the board an accurate number. That's really challenging from an operational standpoint, but there's actually a much larger opportunity cost, and that's that you hit local maximums in each of these business functions. And that's the real pernicious thing, that if everyone's working really hard, it's like, man, we're working really hard, we are getting this data together, you can almost miss the fact that marketing has an incomplete view. And so they actually can't tell what's happening downstream on a granular level, either in the product, which campaigns are actually driving sign-up trials where they activate. That's a hard question to answer, right? You're just not going to look into it that deeply if someone has to spend days in spreadsheets, right? Or even more important, which campaigns lead to active trials that lead to like sales accepted opportunity, leads and then opportunities, right? Which ones of those closed? How many are closed lost? Why are they closed lost? Those are the answers that really that can really ignite growth in a business. Because if you can piece together that happy path and make it repeatable in the business, it's game changing, right? And so that was a very long way of describing this problem of identity resolution. When we say identity resolution, what we're doing, what we really mean is, what are all of the different pieces of information you have about your customer, and how do you combine those into a single view? And this is the marketing terminology around this is nauseating. Golden customer record, single pane of glass, single source of truth, customer 360, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it, right? At the end of the day, it's very simple. It is collecting all the touch points you have about your customer and combining that into a profile that gives you a complete story about that customer with data that enables your teams to make fully data-informed decisions, whether that's about a marketing campaign, a product feature, or the sales process. And so the punchline here is that, at Rudderstack, we believe that, building this in Salesforce or Google Analytics or other product tools, like everyone knows that when they've tried that, it's failed. The place to do that is in the cloud data warehouse. And so Rudderstack provides a solution that allows you to collect all of that data, build that complete profile in the data warehouse, where you have a flexible enough set of, data-focused features and flexible enough data model to do that, and then push that back out into each tool so that every tool has a complete view of the customer and they can all operate from that single source of truth. So there you go. I'll take a moment to breathe.
Yeah, that's awesome. So much valuable information because you're right. There's so many hiccups and challenges along the path, and trying to make that happen can be really tough, especially if you're trying to set up new campaigns and you need the data to tell you what's going to be the right way to do it, what's the right way to personalize. So let me ask you this: how can marketing teams collaborate really effectively with data teams to make sure that they understand the data and they can use that data and the insights so that they can have better targeting and personalization?
Great question. So there are two aspects to this. One, I would say, is the first part of what you said, which is understanding. And then the second part is what do you do with that understanding, which is things like personalization. The understanding piece with marketing, in my opinion, should always start with the question of how do we get clear attribution? A classic challenge that many SaaS businesses run into is that they only look at one or maybe two views of attribution. And in fact, if you're doing a lot of reporting out of Salesforce, it's almost always a last touch attribution model. And so just to clarify what I mean by that, if we think about the customer journey, and actually I'll use Rudderstack as an example, we're a B2B SaaS company. We ran an analysis about the customer journey. So someone visits the website, they look around, they maybe join a webinar, maybe they sign up for the app, for a free trial, then they request a demo, then they go look at the documentation, whatever all those touch points are. There were, 17 on average touch points that someone went through before actually getting onto a call. Okay. What's recorded in Salesforce is the very last action that they did, which is usually filling out some form on the website that's related to sales, which is contact us or request a demo, right?
Yep.
Okay. So that's not bad, but if the revenue ops team, which we have a wonderful revenue ops team, so this thankfully isn't the case here, but if they're trying to look at the attribution in Salesforce, they would say, the answer to our growth problems is getting more demo requests. How do we do that, right? But that's step 15, in a 17-step process, right?
For sure.
And so that, I would say, is a huge, understanding, even if you can just get first touch and last touch, the marketing team can start to optimize the channels that eventually lead, the first touch channels that eventually lead to the last touch that you want to get to, right? And then, of course, you can sort of get as complicated as you want from there. How does a free trial play into it, et cetera? So that's one part of it. That requires having a complete view of your customer and everything that they've done across every touch point, right? So you get the attribution piece, you understand what's working, and then you want to start to personalize the experience so that you can get people on that happy path faster, right? Well, the good news is if you've built this complete view of your customer, you have all this information about them, and for B2B companies, the way that we look at it is, and this is data that's actually pretty hard to combine manually, right? How large is their company? What industry? I mean, you can get some of that through enrichment or whatever. How many people have signed up for the, for free trials in the app? What are their different job titles? What different actions have those people performed, right? Because a lot of times what, you think about, this account came in through a request demo. Well, an example of, at Rudderstack of how that can be very misleading is that, well, there may have been 2 or 3 people who signed up for the app before that, activated in the product, joined a webinar, and then they go back and tell the decision maker internally, we found this thing, we think it can solve our problem, you should check it out. They go and they're like, this is cool, I'm going to request a demo, right? And so, of course, all the executives are like, let's get to the decision maker and get a demo request, and that's how we're going to grow the business. And it's like, no. That's the result of a much larger process. So that's sort of the attribution and personalization side of it.
Yeah, I think it's so critical. You're right, especially something like this, what we're doing right now, a podcast. I have people who come and want to work with me, and it's hard to figure out, did you come from the podcast? Did you come from YouTube? Did you come from LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Really understanding that is difficult. So as we wrap up here, Eric, What advice would you give to software leaders who are trying to sort all this out, trying to understand the data, trying to understand attribution, and figure out how they can best grow their efforts, in the best possible way? What would you say?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to something that you said earlier, which is, what are the one or two numbers that you're aligning the organization around? And I would really work with each function to answer how they are accountable to that. And as a product marketer, one of the first places to start is with the product team and the product roadmap, right? And that's something that, a lot of times, unfortunately, if you're trying to grow a SaaS business, you can get into a situation where the tail is wagging the dog, right? Sales is like, I need this feature in order to sell more, right? And that can be a very difficult situation because you're just sort of building stuff ad hoc, without understanding, of course you could draw a direct line of like, would it help this sales rep close a couple more deals? Like, sure. But does that actually help us accomplish the goal for the entire company? Right. And so that gives you the discipline to say no on the product side, or yes on the product side. That makes, the job for people like me much, much easier, right? Because then I have a very clear idea of what our goal is and how we need to take stuff to market. And then it focuses the work of every other team, right? So if marketing knows this is our goal, they can start to go answer some of the questions of like, when this happens and we do well, why is that happening? How is that happening? Right? From the first touch all the way to the last touch. Right. And I think starting simple is really helpful there. You don't have to boil the ocean. But I would just rack up quick wins, right? Like, can I uncover an insight that gives us a little bit more detail about the customer journey and how we can optimize it, and build towards that, sort of that full picture view.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super great advice, by the way, Eric. This has been fantastic. I can see you're just an amazing expert at all of this stuff. How can our audience learn more about you and Rudderstack?
Sure. Rudderstack is way more interesting than me. So we'll start there. So rudderstack.com, that's like a boat rudder, RUDDER stack, like a stack of pancakes.com. And you can go check us out, request more information. There's a bunch of videos. And then I'm on LinkedIn, so you can just search Eric Dodds or Eric Dodds Rudderstack and connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to chat.
Okay, perfect. We'll put all that in the show notes. If you're listening or watching, go check that out there. You'll be able to grab that and go follow Eric. Go check out Rudderstack as well. Eric, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Absolutely. And everybody out there, thanks for being here as well. Again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any other innovators and leaders like Eric. Some great stuff coming up, so hit that. And by the way, we are looking for reviews. We want to make sure that the world knows that this is something that can help them. So if you think this is valuable, if you think you're getting great information like what Eric just shared was awesome, please share a review. That way other people can learn about it as well. Thank you very much for being here. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Scale Your SaaS. For more help on finding great leads and closing more deals, go to mattwolach.com.